and I'm the clinical director at First Step Center. And am I just going in?
Thank you for tuning in today. You're back with us here at First Step Center to talk about addiction and mental illness. Today's episode is on anxiety and addiction and how those two interact. With us, we have First Step Center Clinical Director, Karisa Kloscak. Let's get started.
Common anxiety can be little things throughout the day that might be manageable for a person. They can use skills like deep breathing or just things to move through it. But when it becomes more of a pervasive problem, it's difficult to leave the house, it's difficult to be in social situations. Everything just becomes difficult, and it can be debilitating for people. It's because if you have anxiety, it's really difficult to control, and a lot of people don't want to smell essential oils or use a stress ball, so they do what is more accessible, which can be medication from a doctor or drinking or any substance that can help them just let go of some of that, and then it becomes co-occurring. So if you have the anxiety and it's so debilitating, it's become generalized anxiety or something else, you want to medicate it because it's so uncomfortable to be in your body. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble with substance use, because they'll pick up a drink and medicate themselves, and then it just becomes a vicious cycle. Kids can have anxiety, and usually it's coming from somewhere. So we don't, there's nature, nurture, all of that stuff, and there's something to the genetic component of anxiety. But typically, if you have anxiety as a kid, something has happened. There's a reason, something's going on for you. So that needs to be addressed. It's attacking us from the inside out when we have anxiety. Everybody has a different nervous system and thought pattern and different triggers. So everyone's going to handle difficult situations in different ways. So there are highly sensitive people who might just really be triggered, and they have to do a lot of work on boundaries and coping skills. And some other people might function more cognitively and are not as affected by some of those symptoms. I tend to think that anxiety comes before substance use. Some people think that a substance can cause a lot of anxiety later with withdrawal and things like that, which does make sense. But typically someone's picking up a drink because they feel uncomfortable and they feel anxious in the first place. Or they don't feel and they're trying to feel. So even doctors who are well-meaning and prescribing medications to people with anxiety need to keep in mind that that can be a substance issue later, which is actually going to get them further away from the root cause of the anxiety. Deep breathing is a really good technique. Walking, definitely therapy. Anyone with anxiety, I would say please go to therapy, number one, to learn the coping skills, because there are plenty. It just depends on each person and what you like to do. So if stress balls don't work for some people, then they can work with something else. It's really about finding what works for you. Yeah, it can really escalate and keep people isolated. We're human beings and we want connection. That's what we're designed for. So isolating, agoraphobia, constant panic. It's really bad for your nervous system. It's bad for a lot of things internally. Stress is not good for the body. So that can lead to several health complications later if it's not treated. It's a delicate dance that needs to be done to manage the substance use and the anxiety at the same time. That's why mental health treatment is so important to treat both, because a lot of times anxiety will keep someone from going to a 12-step group that can really help them. It will keep them from getting that connection that they definitely need just because it's too scary. So having a therapist say, hey, that's normal, and it is really hard to go to meetings. So just one foot in front of the other, and maybe your goal is to just get to the meeting and leave for the first time, or get there and sit down and you don't have to say anything. So having a therapist help you work through that I think is most important, so that you're getting out of the house and you can address the substance issues. And once you do that, you can get to more of the root causes. Don't lose hope. I know that that is tricky. And just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Try to let people around you help. It's okay. Anxiety is seen as something that's kind of shameful in our society. We're supposed to have it all together. And having anxiety doesn't mean you don't have it all together. It means you're struggling with a lot of things, probably for a good reason. And it's okay to reach out. So I would say you're not alone, and help and healing is possible. I'd like to say that it's not a lifetime thing, but I have anxiety, and sometimes it's worse than other times. And I do think it's lifelong, because our fight-flight response in our nervous system is lifelong, and we want it to be. So it's not a bad thing. I would say the way our society treats it is the bad thing. So it might seem actually more comfortable for people who are used to anxiety to be caught up in those patterns over and over. It's like, okay, it's familiar. It can be familiar, but it doesn't have to be the norm for you. You can break out of that, and it might feel really weird and really scary, but you can definitely do it.
This has been a First Step Center Productions. If you have a topic that you'd like us to talk about, please leave it in the comments below, and we will get to that as soon as possible. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you like what you see, and check out our other videos. As always, thank you. Be blessed and stay sober. The road to recovery is hard, but it's always worth it.